What's up, guys? Ron Harris here on Ron Harris Muscle. So yesterday, Olympia TV did something they do every now and then. They bring out Mr. Olympia champions to train together. I guess this was historic. They never had three of them together at the same time before. So let's take a look. This is the first time watching. I was busy, as you know, a lot of you guys were busy. So I didn't watch this. I'm going to watch it with you guys right now. I won't bore you with every little detail of it. I'll skim through here and there. So here we have Tarek El-Gundy with Brandon Curry on your left, Samson Dauda all the way from the UK, right there in the middle, and then on the right, a massive Derek Lunsford. They're going to do some arm training, and at the very end, they're going to hit some poses. Now, nobody's shirt ever comes off. They do go down to tank tops. They are in these large tops for quite a while. So it starts off with arm training. But like I said, they're all covered up. Of course, you want to see these official Nebbia Olympia shirts they had made up for this. The Battle Nebbia, the official clothing sponsor of the Olympia. So Brandon Curry. Now, obviously, someone is conspicuously missing here. Should be there. We're talking about Hadi Choopan, who's over in Iran. There was a little bit of a controversial news story in our little bodybuilding world, because President Trump announced that certain countries, their nationals would not be allowed to enter the United States at all. And one of those countries was, you guessed it, Iran. There is a clause in that proclamation for people competing in high-level athletic events. And I think the Olympia would certainly qualify as a high-level athletic event. So I don't think Hani's going to have a problem. You know, they can train with people they're competing with. Actually, never saw people do this. Well, you know what? Your mom's flip-flop. I think in years past, some of the greatest training partners were guys who were rivals. Arnold and Franco, prime examples. They were, you know, training partners for years, had awesome workouts. They fed off each other's energy, that rivalry in the gym. Franco was actually always stronger than Arnold, even though he was significantly shorter and lighter, but he was a power lifter. Franco was very strong. Another couple of guys who trained together before he turned pro, Rich Gaspari lived out in Los Angeles with Lee Haney for a year, and they trained together. They would later become very fierce rivals on the Olympia stage. Yeah, typically you don't see guys who are currently competing against each other these days training. This was all staged. It was for, you know, the Olympia. They flew these guys out so Brandon's from Tennessee. Samson, had to come all the way from UK. And Derek is in Tampa, Florida area. Not showing much skin there, obviously. Battle for Olympia videos were iconic. Yeah, so what Kalyan's talking about is the actual Battle for the Olympia. These were videos that were made, for about 20 years. First, Mitsuru Kabi made most of them. He would go all around the country and sometimes overseas and film the Olympia competitors at anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks out. So they were always in pretty good shape. Usually had them doing a different body part. So you'd see like Ronnie doing legs, Jay doing chest or something. And these Battle for the Olympia tapes were, you know, if you have any of those, you know how good they are. I think most of them are on Battle for the Olympia is a YouTube channel where the current owner, Bruce, he's uploaded almost all those anyway. So you can check those out for you. Hope they'll let him come to the US. Yeah, I don't think Hadi's going to have a problem getting to the US because he is an employee of Evogen Nutrition, which is a US-based company. So even if he wasn't coming here as an athlete, he could come here on some sort of work visa. You know, they got Hadi here initially years ago when Trump was president too. So I don't think it's going to be a problem. I really don't. Imagine competing your training partner, your rival, who would push you as hard as. No, that's not true. I don't believe that your mom's flip-flop. If you watch Arnold and Franco training in the movie Pumping Iron, training together, there's not much footage of them trained together, but they were excellent. They were such good training partners that when Joe Weider brought Arnold Schwarzenegger here, and I think it was 1969, Arnold had just come over from Munich, Germany, where he had been for the past, I think, year or two before that, and he'd been training with Franco there, and he convinced Joe Weider to bring out Franco, you know, pay for Franco to come out and live there because he said he needed Franco to push him to be his best. So some of these guys, you would think that, yeah, but if you're training, even if you're training with your rival, if you're trying to win the Olympia or keep your Olympia title, you're going to train as hard as you can anyway. You're not going to hold back for anybody else. So I wouldn't worry about that. Muscle Machine, when Samson did a double bicep at the end, his bicep peak looked terrible. Flat line in the middle, too much ejecting. I'll jump right into that. Marcus Rule over here says a lot. Says it a lot. What does he say? He says they wouldn't, if that's how Marcus felt, so Marcus wouldn't train with anybody else. Yeah, I can flip all over the place on this video, so let me go to that. No, I don't want to do that. Settings. So where were they posing? I'll jump right ahead to the posing, and then I'll sort of backtrack. But the posing was at the very, very end. Chris Cormier. Okay, so here's at the end. The workout was over. Samson looking huge. Derek looking huge. Brandon looked pretty big too. Obviously, Brandon isn't as massive. He's a big dude, don't get me wrong, but he's not as massive as Samson or Derek. Pound for pound, I think Derek looks the biggest out of everybody. He's competed most recently. There's Jake Wood. They came up with trophies just for this event. So how cool was that? Yeah, very nice. I mean, Jake Wood spares no expense. He's all about the bodybuilders. So they all got a special trophy just for coming out, I guess. Yeah, we'll look at the posing once they get to that. Marcus Rule says it often. He always talks about your training partner. Let's think for you. His number one wife was the original training partner. Yeah, if you watch the video, it's a DVD made in Germany. It's probably on YouTube with Marcus Rule and his. I didn't know they were married. I thought that was just his girlfriend at the time. We're talking about the big bodybuilder. I can't remember her name. He trained with a female bodybuilder that was his. I thought they were just girls. Simone, I think her name was Simone. I didn't know they were married, but regardless, yeah, they were great training partners. So they each got a gift bag, giving them all the swag for showing up, because they're all starting. They shouldn't be in prep yet. We got 18 weeks to the Olympia, so a couple weeks before they have to really get into prep. Derek doesn't really have to do a whole lot. He's still in pretty decent shape. Where's Nick? Well, this is for the Olympia champions, Goku, and as of now, he is not Olympia champion. Oh, okay, so I went past the posing. My bad. Let me go back. Oh, here was the posing. Okay, so let's look at the posing for a second. They only had Tamer only had them. Tarek, I'm sorry, his brother's Tamer. Tarek only had them hit a few shots, and obviously it's not full body. They've got tank tops and shorts on. But of course, we all love to see these guys pose down against each other. We like to see the rivalry start. The show is so far away. It's 4 full months away from right now. 18. It's more than 4 months away. But still, we like to speculate. We like to sort of size these guys up and see who falls into what we believe is an advantage at this point or a disadvantage. So, make some room. Samson's so wide. Yeah, I see what you're saying. I mean, Derek doesn't have the greatest biceps either as far as shape. Brandon actually has the best arms. It's kind of hard to see here because he's not remotely in shape either. But in terms of the muscle shape and the separation in the different muscle groups in the upper arm, Brandon Curry actually has the best arms out of these 3 guys. I'm sure if you throw a tape measure around, Samson's got the biggest arms. And Brandon would look, you'd understand a lot more what I was talking about if Brandon was leaner, but I don't think he's doing the Masters. Am I right? I think he's already backed out of doing the Masters Olympia, so we're not going to see him again until the Olympia. Remember, he is a Mr. Olympia champion, so he doesn't need to qualify. None of these guys need to qualify. Mr. Olympia champions are qualified for life. I think they added a clause that if it's been more than 5 years, they have to ask special permission or something. Something they threw in like that. But look at that. Derek is looking huge. Samson is just getting back into gear. He was in a health phase. That's what the phrase that's used now when people take some time off gear. So Samson was in a health phase. It looks like he's just getting back on. I'm just speculating. I don't know. But he'll be looking more and more impressive as the weeks go by, as they all will. Of course. But let's back up. Let's get some comments, guys. Where's Nick? All right, so this was Loho. This was a gym in Scottsdale, Arizona. I missed the name of the gym. The Olympia is basically, that's where they do all their TV production. Scottsdale, I believe, is a suburb of Phoenix. Jake Wood lives out there. So that's his base of operations for all the video and television production that they do for the YouTube videos and everything. So when they want to do something big on YouTube, they bring the guys out there so that they can all, I mean, that's where they do Primetime Muscle every week on Olympia TV. They have a studio that they built that looks very similar to Sports Center on ESPN. You know, they spared no expense. So that's what this is. It was a live. They did this live on their YouTube channel yesterday. I'm actually surprised at the views. And I say that because Olympia TV has something like 421,000 subscribers. And this got 7,000 and change in terms of views. I would have thought, geez, I would have thought at least 20, 30, 40,000. But, you know, what do I know? Look at me. Who am I to talk? Derek's width. Yeah, Derek's. That's what a lot of people were commenting on social media about this video is Derek. He's obviously the shortest. Brandon's not much taller. Samson is significantly taller. Samson's either 5'11" or 6 foot. That seems to be the object of debate. I'll have people on here swear they're 100% certain that Samson is 5'11", and another group of people will swear up and down he's 6 foot. I don't know. It's all the same to me. Really made the biggest visual statement training session. Yeah, they're not even in prep yet. I don't know why he's talking to these people. They're nowhere near being in prep yet. Derek obviously is still in decent shape from the Arnold Classic, the Pittsburgh shows. Pittsburgh was just about a month ago at this point. So he hasn't gotten out of shape. He's not going to get out of shape. Why would he? Because he's going to have to start prep up for the Olympia within a few weeks, 2 to 4 weeks. I don't know if he'll take the whole 16 weeks, probably. And Chris Cormier is supervising to make sure he's doing the curls properly, I guess. Man, I need to get in on this gravy train. Samson's huge. Yeah, I think someone said he was 340 pounds. He gets very, very heavy. I mean, on stage, he was at the Arnold where he took second to Derek. I heard he was 305, 306. Jay Cutler was assisted by his ex-wife, Carrie Cutler. Yeah. Yeah, you know, and I remember talking to Jay about that and saying, you know, if your wife can't spot you, if you need a big, strong guy to spot you, that tells me you're probably relying on the spotter a lot of times to help you or lift part of the weight for you. You know, you shouldn't really need another big, freaky guy to spot you unless we're talking about, you know, you're bench pressing 500 pounds and you need someone who's going to be able to pull that off you if you ever got stuck, or you know, if you're squatting without pins in a power rack or something like that. But you know, if you're using dumbbells, if you use most exercises, you should not need anyone but, you know, your wife or your girlfriend to spot you, or else it's too much weight. You know, if you're relying on somebody to help you get an extra few reps, that means it's too much weight. You're not capable of doing that weight on your own anyway. Brandon, everything's balanced. Yeah, Brandon's got a hell of a physique. I know people like to slam his quads, saying, "Oh, his legs aren't that great." No, he never had freakish legs, but geez, the overall symmetry, shape, structure on Brandon Curry was phenomenal. You know, he was Mr. Olympia for a reason. He was Arnold Classic champ twice for a reason. Does Brandon have a chance to win the title back? I would say no. I'm just being very, very real. I don't see Brandon ever recapturing his Mr. Olympia title, but if he can stay in the top 5, top 6 for another couple of years, he's over 40. He's 42 years old now. Not that Samson's much younger, but Brandon's been competing a lot longer than Samson has. And Derek as well. Derek's only been competing as a pro since 2017, which, you know, it's still a few years. It's already a pretty decent stretch for pro career. You can see Samson doing what Phil Heath used to do. Phil would do a bunch of reps for one arm and then a bunch of reps for the other arm instead of alternating left, right, left, right. They said Samson's arms are 24. I believe it. I mean, look at how big the dude is. He's got a massive frame. He needs 24-inch arms to balance out that physique. He's a massive human being. Would bet who would look the best came in 100% money on Sam's conditioning is just not a point. Well, you know, I think Samson taking second to Derek at the Arnold Classic back in early March, and the backlash, the shit that he got for that, for not being absolutely shredded where Derek was. I think that, who's this kid? I don't know whose kid that is that they threw in there to Derek's. I don't know. It's kind of young to be lifting weights. What's he look like? He's about 8 or 9 years old. Whatever. Anyway, yeah, I think Samson losing was probably the best thing that could happen in terms of guaranteeing he'll be in great shape for the Olympia. Because had he not done the Arnold, had he showed up in subpar condition at the Olympia, and we hadn't seen him since last year's Olympia, he'd be at a great risk of losing his title to Hadi. Because remember, Hadi was beating him at the judging last year. It wasn't a blowout. He didn't blow Hadi Chupan off the stage. He had a huge margin over Derek because Derek came in looking very flat. His legs were very undersized, which we saw similar situation there, but not as to that extent at the Pittsburgh Pro where Nick Walker damn near beat him. And in a lot of the minds of many of the fans, he did beat him. But I think Samson's going to be ultra motivated to come in, shredded to the bone, dry, looking freaky ripped this October at the Olympia, like we've never seen before. If he's not in that shape at this Olympia this year, I don't think we're ever going to see it because he has to be so motivated. He knows the only reason he lost that Arnold to Derek was condition. If Samson's in condition, who beats him? He's got the height, the width, that structure, that shape. He's got the best physique. Really, he does. He just doesn't have the condition that some of these guys have. You know, overall, he still was able to win the show last year, but there are no guarantees. The Olympia title, the Mr. Olympia title has changed hands so often. We have had 7 different guys in the last 8 years. So think about that. 2017 was Phil Heath. 2018 was Sean Roden. 2019 was Brandon Curry. 20 and 21 were Big Ramy. 22 was Hadi. 23 was Derek. 24 was Samson. So it's not like the old days where Mr. Olympia champion could come in, looking okay, and they'd still let him win. They'd say, you have to knock out the champ. Yeah, he was a little bit off, but he's Mr. Olympia, so you got to knock him out. You can't just beat him by a small margin. It's not like that anymore. It's judged completely on whoever's looking good that day. Whoever looks the best that day is going to win, bottom line. And that's a great thing. Oh, the gym name, thank you. The gym's name is Independence Gym in Scottsdale, Arizona. If I'd really paid attention, I probably would have noticed the sign up on the wall with the logo and everything. But Independence Gym in Scottsdale. Yeah, I have no interest in going to Arizona in these summer months. It's like 120 degrees every day. RG says, Derek got to work on his chest a whole lot for his arms. Drop the machine more free weights. I don't think it would matter, honestly. I don't think the free weights, he does plenty of free weights for his arms. I don't think it matters. His arms are huge. They just don't have, especially the biceps, there's just very little detail and separation. You know, Brandon, like I said, Brandon Curry, when they're all in shape, Brandon has the best arms in terms of shape. Now, I'm sure Samson's arms measure a couple inches more than Brandon Curry's. I have no doubt about that. But Brandon has really good separation between the individual muscle groups, the different 2 heads of the biceps, the brachialis, the triceps, got striations in there. He's got detail where both Samson and Derek, the arms are just kind of big lumps. There's not much detail going on. Andrew, this training was nowhere near the same as Nick was in it. Yeah. Well, I find the guys that are trying to win the Mr. Olympia, they tend to just be hungrier than the guys who already have been Mr. Olympia. Because Nick's still trying to climb that mountain. He's still trying to get to Mr. Olympia. I'm not saying these guys are lazy or they're content and not trying hard. Of course they are. But somebody like Nick, who's still striving to win his first Mr. Olympia title, and he's trying to prove to all the haters and the doubters, because there's a lot of people out there who've said Nick Walker will never win Mr. Olympia. And, Nick takes that as fuel. He doesn't let it discourage him or get him down. Nick Walker, when he hears that Nick Walker can never win the Olympia, he's like, oh, yeah, F you. I'll show you. So usually Samson takes 8 weeks off blasting. This time he was off 10 weeks. So he extra time off. That's good because I don't think it's good for anybody, especially at this level, to be blasting gear all damn year long. They're superhuman in a way, but they're still human beings. So at some point, the body's just going to burn out and stop responding. So taking time off of the gear. And I had Lee Haney on a couple days ago. That's up on this channel still. And he was talking about, I know you guys are all, most of you will say he was lying about the doses the guys use, but I do believe he was very accurate in what he said about taking time off. Because the guys back then did take months and months out of the year off. They weren't on. They didn't blast and cruise back then. They would go 100% off. They would go on HCG after the gear cycle was over. They would do that for a couple of weeks, and then they would stay completely off everything for, I don't know, usually 8 to 10, 12 weeks, and then they would go back on. They wouldn't bridge the cycle. They didn't do TRT doses in between back then. It was just a different era, totally different era. Imagine training at this gym on Friday afternoon. 3 Mr. Olympia's there too. Yeah, Big T. Well, they've used this gym. This seems to be their base of operations when they do these type of videos. I think it's always at this gym, Independence Gym in Scottsdale. So the members there are probably used to seeing, just like the members at Bevan Steve's Powerhouse or Gold's Venice, especially more so back in the day. They're used to seeing top competitors all the time. Especially where, like I said, this is Olympia TV's base of operations, the Phoenix area, Scottsdale, Arizona area. So they're probably not too shocked. But yeah, imagine walking in your gym and, oh my gosh, 3 Mr. Olympias. I'd be freaking out. 2 people that are a real problem for this are Hottie and Nick to me. Yeah, I mean, like I said, we all know Hottie damn near beat Derek. A lot of us, a lot of people had Nick Walker winning that Pittsburgh Pro. So granted, Lunsford came in a little bit flat, especially in the legs. But who's to say what he's going to look like in October? That's a big what if. Is Derek going to be able to recapture that look that he had at the Arnold Classic and that he had when he won the Olympia back in 2023? Or is he going to suffer again with the same issue with the legs being flat and downsized? If that's the case, he's not going to win. He's not going to get his title back. Samson needs to show up in crazy condition because I don't think the only way Samson isn't going to be a very dangerous threat is if somehow, God forbid, he can't get into the USA. I think Hottie's he's going to have a full year off. He's only been focusing on this one show where Samson did the Arnold, Derek did the Arnold and the Pittsburgh show. So I think that puts him at a slight disadvantage. I don't think it's good for these guys to prep all year long like that, stay in prep mode. And be on gear and all that stuff for most of the year. Here's Derek, Coach Derek again. I don't know who this kid is. A couple years ago, I was training on a random Wednesday afternoon, Destination Dallas, and Keon, Martin, and Hunter are doing like 6 to me. Yowza. Imagine that. Geez, Martin's legs are crazy. Keon's got some pretty damn good legs too. Yeah, Destination Dallas is where Gasp does all their video content. Guy that used to work with MD, Nick Del Toro, still their chief videographer, so they shoot a lot of content in there. Hell yeah, dude. Who would you say is the best songs people you've seen in person or interviewed? Oh boy. Geez. Rolly Winkler. Triceps and biceps. I don't know about the complete arm. Maybe Ronnie. If you talk triceps, I'd be like, geez, Phil Heath, Rolly Winkler had some of the greatest triceps I've ever seen in my life. Biceps, geez, Ronnie had some crazy biceps. Vince Taylor had some incredible biceps. It's tough. There's a lot of guys I've seen over the years. Mike Matarazzo had some crazy arms, crazy biceps, especially the late Mike Matarazzo. He had the best calves, no doubt. Regular day at Destination, yeah. Second doses get the views in your interviews, Ron. Yeah, you know what, Ali, you got a good point there. I'm probably like too nice of a guy sometimes. It's like, I don't want to go there. I don't want to ask them about cycles. Because I remember before I used to start every interview for MD, I would ask the guys, anything you want to make sure we talk about, anything you want to make sure we don't talk about. And a lot of them would say, we're not going to talk, I don't want to talk about gear. And I'm like, all right, that's cool. And I wasn't going to ask about that anyway. But now I see there are certain podcasts where they get very in-depth. I'd say, and some of them are far bigger channel. Transparent, not Tran, but Transparent podcast. What's his name? Niall. He asks everybody that's on there detailed questions about their cycles, to rate this or that drug. You like this one? Why do you like about it? What don't you like? He gets very in-depth on the drugs. I feel so awkward doing that. And maybe I need to get over that. And, if the guys are comfortable talking with it, and I clear that, I'm not going to ambush them or blindside out of nowhere, say, all right, let's talk about your cycle. But if ahead of time, if they agree to that, I'll go there with them. It's crazy how it's becoming such a more talked about thing. Whereas in days past, guys never talked about their cycles, never talked about they wouldn't even admit to taking gear because it was in a lot of their contracts, whether it was a supplement endorsement contract, sometimes even the magazine contracts, that they could not talk about being on illegal drugs. And steroids still are considered illegal drugs. So it was a clause in the contract that they could lose their contract, which a lot of these guys back in the day when contracts were king, they don't do contracts these days like they used to. In the 90s, say let's say the 2000s was probably 95 to 2010 was probably the heyday, the highlight of when contracts were paying out the most. $200,000 to $500,000 a year contracts for a lot of these guys. 100 to 200,000 was like average, and then you had a few guys like Jay, who was being paid probably like $500,000. I think Heath was getting $500,000 from Muscle Tech as well at one time. But it was in their contract that they could not talk about steroids publicly. If they did, they were subject to termination, and there goes all that free money, easy money for an amateur bodybuilder. They're a decent bicep size. Well, how tall are you, Zionic? If you're 5'2", I'd say like a 15, 16-inch arm with good shape and separation would look pretty damn big. If you're 6 foot, a 15, 16-inch arm is not going to cut it. Now you need to have probably 19 or 20-inch arm to look impressive. So it really depends on how big of a guy you are, how short, how tall you are. But again, shape and detail go a long way too, because you'll see guys, carrying body fat and their arms just look like big blobs. You throw a tape measure around them, it might say 21 inches. I'd rather have an 18 or a 19-inch arm that's shredded with a crazy jagged bicep peak, triceps with a clear horseshoe and striations in it, beautiful shape, rather than a 21-inch arm with just looks like a big fat blob. I mean, if you guys watch pro football, I'm sure a lot of you do, those linemen that you see, those guys who are, they're all in the 300 to 400 pound range. They're all big mother efforts. They're big dudes. They all have arms that are 20 to 24 inches, but a lot of it's just a big shapeless blob. It's not like, wow, I don't think too many of you are watching those, looking at the football games and watching these guys on the sidelines going, wow, I wish I had arms like that. No. Samson has never been in condition. Never will be. Wussten Fuchs. I hope that's not true. Yeah, it depends on the weight. I said, if you go back in history, like Franco Columbu was a 2-time Mr. Olympia. I seriously doubt his arms are more than 18 inches, but they look freaking great. He was 5'4". Arnold was supposedly 6'2". I think his arms were billed at 21 inches. I don't know what they really were, but his arms look great too. But he had to have much bigger arms because he was a much taller guy. So the height is definitely gonna play into it. Samson not wearing the Olympia shirt and Derek showing love to the kids. Small things, but politics matter. Yeah, I mean, Samson's obviously showing more loyalty here to his sponsor, Hostile Nutrition. They're paying him a very good amount, I'm sure. But yeah, I would imagine that the Olympia TV people weren't overjoyed that he chose to keep that on. He did go down the tank top toward the end, right? But yeah, he repped his sponsor rather than the Olympia clothing sponsor, Nebbia. But I think they're all down. Yeah, they're all in the same tank tops now. But yeah, let me see. I just want to check that. So we go back. That was Dan. Yeah, you're right. Samson did not wear those nice jerseys that Nebbia made up special just for these videos. Come on, Samson. Why you gotta do that? All right, let's go back to some training. I think I just missed the set. They're all looking large. Oh, that's Derek and the kid. Derek and the boy. Samson Derek got the same sausage arms. Yeah, Black Patron. That's what I'm saying. Shape and detail, they go a long way. Measurements, I always say, like height and weight don't matter, really. You can have two guys, let's say, let's make them identical. 5'9", 225, 5% body fat. Just throwing that out there. You could have two guys with those exact same measurements, proportions. One of them has super wide shoulders, narrow hips, very round cap delts, flaring thighs. The other one at 5'9", 225 ripped, narrow shoulders, wide hips, no bicep peak, no quad sweep, I guarantee you the guy who's got all those more favorable genetic attributes in terms of structure and muscle shape, he's going to appear to be a lot bigger, even though technically they're the exact same size. They carry the exact amount of muscle mass, pound for pound for their height. But, you know, size and shape go a long way. I don't want to say. Jake Wood looking buff. I mean, yeah, he's got to look the part. He's a tall guy. I've stood next to him many times. He's got to be 6'6" or 6'7". First time any of you, Lee Haynes, talked about anything related to steroids, little naming the compounds. Yeah, I was like, I've interviewed Lee probably 20 times over the years, and this was the first time I ever asked him about gear. And it's because if he's going to come out and say these guys now are using way too much, I said that we have to quantify that. We have to say what's too much. What are we comparing it to? What did guys back in your era use? I said specifically, Lee, I'm not asking you. I don't want you to tell me your exact cycle, though. I think when he was rattling off the compounds, and that's at 22 minutes into the video, the Lee Haney interview, I do feel he was probably referring to his own use because, you know, even though I worded it in such a way as to give him an out, say, well, what do you think the other guys of your era were using? I don't think they talked about their gear use too. I don't think they talked about it much back in those days. They weren't so fascinated with the drugs back then the way we are now. When I know people get mad, drugs are steroids are everything. Whereas if the guys from his era say steroids are the finishing touch, I get a lot of it. Triggers so many of the younger guys now. Like, what finishing touch? They never would have looked at like that without steroids. Clearly, that's true. They did need the steroids to achieve that look, but they didn't rely on them anywhere near to the degree I think that the current guys do. These current guys, the doses are higher. They stay on for longer periods, and they don't take a lot of time off. Whereas back in the day, I do believe they did. Ron has respect for the industry and legends. Lee usually doesn't go there gear. Yeah, and I didn't blindside him. You know, if he didn't want to talk about it, if I saw that he was uncomfortable, I was just going to change the subject. Complete arms. Danny Padilla, the Giant Killer, the original Giant Killer, had great arms. You're right. Vucevic, I think Krizo has the best arms. Yeah, Krizo has some pretty awesome arms. I'm not going to argue that point. They're pretty amazing. Me personally, mentality training, Dorian was the best ever. I kind of wish something like that was around today. Well, he was a one of a kind. We're never going to see another of any. Lee Haney, Dorian, Ronnie, Phil. You know, we'll never see another Derek, another Samson. These guys are individuals. So when we say who's going to be the next Dorian, the next Flex Wheeler, the next Ronnie, there's never going to be a next of any of those. They were one-off, unique. Derek pulled him aside, told him to put on a shirt, but he refused. Well, I'm not saying they're going to score him down at the Olympia for that, but yeah. He wanted to make his sponsor happy. Samson does not want to be there with a surplus. Why do you think bodybuilders say don't have the muscle quality in the 80s? Is it insulin? Are they just growing too fast? I think it could be a few things. I don't know the definitive answer. Insulin could probably be a big factor. They do put the muscle on very quickly. They do a lot of site injecting. They inject a lot into there. I'm not saying it's necessarily site enhancement oil, but I think they're putting a lot of their regular gear into their shoulders and their arms. It's taking away a lot of the detail and separation. If you look at, unfortunately, the videos and the pictures, the resolution from the old days isn't as good because the technology wasn't there for photography and videography. But you can see back in the old days, those guys had incredible muscle separation and detail. Talking about like the 80s, even into the 90s, but the 80s especially, because I think the 90s is when insulin really started creeping in and the SEO started creeping in. But in the 80s, the guys were smaller. But dude, I've seen pictures of Samir Bannout where there were, like 100 cross-trations down his tricep when he hit a side tricep pose. The quads of everybody were feathered on every head of the quad. What compound Sean Ray stuck to, so he seemed to find a sweet spot for Zeke. Say there. Maybe I'll get him to talk about it. We'll see. Leo longevity channel, so obsessed steroids, course between anabolics were irritating. Yeah, rest in peace. He's not here with us anymore, so I'm not going to speak ill of him. But some of these people, that's all they want to talk about is gear, gear, gear. And I understand the fascination with it. And yes, it does play a big role in bodybuilding, but I don't even have the patience. I don't want to talk about gear all the time. It bores me. I don't know. That's why I always say I know a little bit about gear. I know, more than maybe the average schmuck in the gym, but I'm not a gear expert. I never claimed to be, and I don't want to be. It doesn't interest me that much. It really doesn't. Even when I was blasting gear, I would ask questions here and there, people that I knew were far more knowledgeable than me, and I would look in online and find out what I could, but I was never, I just had no attention span for it. Muscle Time had some quality photos up. Yeah. Oh, you're talking about from this thing? I don't know which photos are what, Black Patron, from the old days. Yeah. Yeah, there's a bunch of channels. Oh, they're checking out, they're measuring. Oh, is this where it gets to be 24? Samson has a pumped arm of, well, I guess it's going to come out to 24, right? I do like the fact that there's no fudging with the tape measure there. Imagine those muscle size in the 80s and 90s and Gilco quality. Oh, yeah, that's why, like, I was at a lot of the Olympias back in the 90s and 2000s. My first one was 91. Some Arnold's too in there. I was lucky enough to be in the front row or second row or whatever many times. And to see those guys up close, you can't appreciate the detail and stuff in the photos and videos because we just didn't have the technology. Sometimes I wish people wouldn't be so honest about gear as they are. Yeah, I mean, it's a double-edged sword. I mean, in the old days, the guys denied it. They said, no, I'm natural. And that was bullshit. That was deceptive and was not being honest, not being transparent. But now we have the total opposite where guys are saying, okay, I'm on this, that, I'm on a gram of this. They detail everything. And of course, some 16, 17-year-old kid or hundreds, thousands of them are going to go, all right, okay, Mr. Olympia is on this and that. I'm going to do the same exact cycle. They're not thinking, well, I'm not at that level yet. They're thinking, if I want to look like that, I have to take what he's taking now. And that's what they'll do. These dudes have real arm separation. Yeah, Phil Heath, one of the qualities he had was he had size. He had real round muscle bellies. Condition was great, but he had that detail and separation between the muscles. That's what really set him apart from a lot of his rivals. I trained in Austria at the gym of a former best friend of Andres Munza. For many stories about him, his muscle separation of the match. He took a lot of oral steroids. I think that helped. No, I think it's mostly a genetic thing. I really do. And obviously, he probably wasn't messing too much with insulin or stuff like that. But I think muscle separation, because I've seen teenagers at times have better muscle separation and muscle detail and quality than guys who've been training for 20, 30 years. So, in terms of separation, Mike Ashley was the post-child natural body before him. Chet Yorton was. Get the likes up, please. Thank you, Jerry. Appreciate that. Yeah, like, share, do all that good crap. Appreciate it, guys. I'm going to be leaving soon, not to walk Branch, but to eat and then walk Branch. It's actually raining, so I don't know if he's going to want to go out. Pit bulls are not fans of the rain. Not at all. So, all right, well, I think you get the idea what these guys look like. It's too early. It's 18 weeks out. We really can't make any. Oh, now they're doing calves. We really can't make any predictions, or their physiques are going to change drastically over the next 4 months. They're going to get back on the cycle, back on the cutting agents, all that good stuff. They're all going to be looking much, much better and more stage ready as the weeks and months drag on toward the Olympia. We're just in early June. Olympia is not till October 11th, so plenty of time for that. Yeah. Anyway. All right. I'll go one more time to the posing. I think we're almost there anyway. That'll be the last thing I'll show, and then we'll take off again. All right, so here's Tarek making them pose down. Didn't even make them pull up the shorts. And again, Derek being an advantage because he has competed the most recently. He certainly bulked up a little bit since Pittsburgh. Samson, the biggest one by far. I mean, he's whacking into everybody. Andres Munza was double dipping with European made American dangerous fat burners, diuretics. Yeah. Did you name your dog after Branch, Warren? Yeah. It's funny because we couldn't make up our minds at the last minute between we chose Branch, but it was between Branch and Dexter. And Dexter wasn't for Dexter Jackson. It was Dexter Morgan from the Showtime series that my wife and we love that show. We watched that religiously when it was on. Great, great show. But yeah, Branch Warren. They hit the rear double. You can't get any. Nobody's in really great shape. Derek's in decent condition there. Looking wide. Derek is looking wider than all of them, even though he's 5'5" on a good day. 5'6", maybe. I think he's 5'5". Side note. Shoulder injury. Oh, Sorry to hear that. I don't have an injury. I have arthritis. It's not an injury. It's nothing that can be healed. I'm getting a new joint on June 25th. They're going to dig out they're going to chop off part of the bone. They're going to pop in titanium on one side, plastic on the other side, so the ball in the socket. And I'm going to have a new shoulder joint, and I can't wait. Cannot wait. No, man, my dog doesn't do any of that stuff. So, all right, guys, I'm going to take off. So appreciate you all watching. Hope you're having a great weekend. Oh, or they could be the dark horse of Olympia. Nick Walker. Don't even care about the recovery because I'll be out of pain. The pain I'm in now, I'll be out of that pain. The pain that I have in recovery from the shoulder replacement is nothing. This wakes me up. I'm up in the morning by like 5, and I just lie there because the pain is so bad I can't fall back asleep. I try. Eventually I fall back asleep, but I don't care how long it takes to recover. I don't care about the sling. None of that. It doesn't matter. Derek's white as a barn. Totally agree. He looks phenomenal. So I'm going to stop sharing that. All right, guys, going to take off. So thank you all for watching. Appreciate it very much. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. I'll probably do a little coverage on Toronto tomorrow. So keep your notifications on, ring that bell. And again, have an awesome weekend, guys. Appreciate you watching.